Welcome back to the Marketplace, your home of NBL free agency. We are working our way through each team, what their needs are for Summer League, which is just around the corner, and the shopping lists that exist for all of our teams. In our previous episode, we've taken a look at the first 5 teams in alphabetical order. You can jump online and catch up on that one. But today, we work out through the remaining 5 teams here in the Hungry Jacks NBL. And to do that, I've got a star-studded panel. I've got Olgun, the best newsbreaker in Australian basketball. Nice to see you, looking immaculately dressed before you head to Vegas as well.
Thank you so much. I had to do the juggling balance of figuring out when to get a haircut, something that I don't know if you have. It was, boy, that was difficult.
That drive-by did not go unnoticed, by the way,
happen,
too. Pete Hawley, nice to see you. I mean, you're on borrowed time with haircuts, if we're putting that out there. But this episode's going to be fun because there's a few teams that have got some big decisions to make.
Yeah, let's get into it before I start firing from the hip over here.
And Derek Rucker joins us once again from Texas. Ruck, welcome. Particularly when we get to the Perth Wildcats, this could be a very, very broad conversation.
It's going to be fantastic. And, you know, it's a pivotal decision for the Wildcats. Which way do they go? But I think they'll be fine either way, Jack.
We'll get to Perth very, very shortly. But let's start with the New Zealand Breakers. Recently, Joel Peterson caught up with Petteri Koppinen on NBL Now. That's available on all of the NBL platforms. Great chat about what they're looking for right now. Here's our shopping list. Here's what we think that they're going to need most. And they prioritised local talent. They've done a pretty good job in doing that as well. The next tick for them was Parker Jackson-Cartwright, who we all believe is going to be an MVP candidate this season. So it leaves a shooting guard and it leaves a power forward. 2
very crucial pieces, but again, we can't understate how good this team is starting to look and starting to build towards. Now you've got Parker Jackson-Cartwright, a proven stud in this league, not just for 1 year, for multiple years. Karim Lopez, a projected lottery pick for the following year. He was unbelievable last year under everything that happened with the Breakers. To him to take another step forward in his career, get towards being that lottery pick is going to be a start. And I'm expecting this to be Sam Menenga's best season as well. So these last 2 spots are crucial. The New Zealand Breakers go out there and nail that. With some of the other pieces they've got coming off the bench, with guys with chips on their shoulders, wanting to prove things, get back home, feel comfortable. And with Coach Kopp with his second year, I know we're harping on about every team feeling good essentially right now, but I'm feeling really confident in what New Zealand Breakers can achieve.
I'm very excited to see what Dylan Boucher does in his first season picking imports. Because we've seen in the past few seasons, the New Zealand Breakers have done a really good job of bringing in high-level imports. Now, they have this 2-guard and this 4 spot. And when I look at the roster, it doesn't look like they've spent that much money on the rest of it, right? Parker Jackson-Cartwright is getting paid adequately, right? Requisite to his level. But you look at Sam Menenga, I don't believe Sam Menenga is on that like starting center pay packet yet. He's still on his sort of second or like 1.5 contract in the NBL because he sort of got traded last season. But you look at the rest of the roster, that bench, and it's a lot of local guys who came home, but there's no like high money guys. And so I look at the 2 spot, look at the 4 spot, and I think they'd have a good amount of money. So I'm intrigued at what Dylan Boucher can do, Ruck, in the talent that he can bring in at those spots.
Well, yeah, it needs to be talent, but it needs to be shooting talent. When you have guys like Parker Jackson-Cartwright, you imagine Karim Lopez is going to be much better this season, slashing with the basketball. You need people out there that can stretch the floor, create lanes, and then also, when it's kicked in rotation, knock down the 3-ball. Now, they showed signs of that last season when they were playing really good basketball. But this season, I think it's going to be more imperative because it's Coach Kopp's second year and expectations will rise.
And I think it's just worth mentioning more broadly just that it'll just be a happier place. It started off a really happy place. At the FIBA break, they were one of the best teams in the competition. And then it fell apart dramatically. I don't think we've seen anything like what we saw last season with how they just capitulated. That's not going to happen this year because things are different now with New Zealand.
They are, and again, bringing in Parker Jackson-Cartwright for 2 years, having those conversations, they were very confident along the last few months they were going to get it done, but to get pen on paper, they take a big sigh of relief now. But Mark Mitchell with the new ownership coming in, Dylan Boucher, Coach Kopp, all getting together saying, hey, what do we need for these last 2 pieces to really go and make a splash in the competition this year? And they nailed that. They're going to be right around the mark. Shooting's a key. They definitely need that to open up the floor. The more shooters you have on a floor with Parker Jackson-Cartwright allows him more space to be able to do his thing, which is impossible to guard. We've seen at times as well. As we mentioned, Lopez, and I really think we're going to see a Sam Menenga version that after this contract will get him paid as one of those premier big men in the comp. And then after that, all the other pieces will kind of fall into place. But they'll have a heavy representation at Summer League going shopping. Let's see what they come up with.
I mean, look, it's a contract year for Sam Menenga. So he says he wants his respect. Let's see what he can go and do in a contract year and get paid next season. But Ruck, tell me what you think about this. I look at that 4 spot and I think of what the team needs. And I don't know if there's enough just creation there. There are enough guys who can go and bend a defense. And we've seen some of the players that the Breakers have had in the past. I think of like an Anthony Lamb type. I think of a Jarrell Brantley type.
Yes.
And even, with another team, you look at what Gary Clark did with the Illawarra Hawks, someone who you can throw it into, someone who could work out of the mid-post, and especially with Menenga's shooting. There's some versatility there that to have a target at the 4 spot makes sense to me, that Anthony Lamb type. What do you think they need in that spot?
Man, you hit the mold perfectly, because that's exactly what I was thinking. I would take more, well, you'll probably agree with me, I would prefer Lamb over Brantley. I thought he was more sophisticated and had a different, more elevated mental approach to offensive basketball. But again, these guys are very expensive. That's why Summer League's so valuable. You might be able to get a 24, 25-year-old that may not be as professional as Lamb with his scoring, but it can still give you buckets, and you can develop and nurture him along throughout the course of the season. But you're right on in terms of the playing profile.
What about at the 2 spot, Pete? Is that, in light of what we've said about Park and Jackson Cartwright, are we talking like knockdown shooter here at the 2? Is that what they need most?
Well, I think that with a bit of creation as well. They still, as Olgun said, they need creation. I think Sean Bestow, he played well last year in the role and opportunity he got. Isaiah Liafa, we're expecting to take another step back to the Isaiah Liafa we saw last time he was with New Zealand. Taylor Britt coming in, long time since we've seen Taylor Britt in the NBL, but they've got all these pieces, great complementary pieces, but they need someone else. So if Parker Jackson Cartwright's sitting out with foul trouble or whatever it is, misses a couple of games, who's their primary playmaker? They need someone else in that guy. And again, we're throwing names out there. I said it the other day, other episode, Barry Brown Jr. type who can handle the rock, create a whole lot of plays, spread the floor, and really play well alongside PJC.
Hey, Pete, it's interesting that you bring that up, because when I was profiling that position, and this is going to be an NBA analogy, but it has Australian relevance, I would like a player like Dyson Daniels next to PJC.
I mean, we'd love to see Dyson Daniels on any roster. I think they need more.
You know what I mean. Don't make fun of me.
They need more offensive playmaking on that side because of the rest of the roster they have around the lack of the build on the bench in that offensive creation.
And especially because as high as we are on Karim Lopez, he's still a baby in terms of his development in the NBL. And so a Dyson Daniels type is sort of a Karim Lopez type. So do you want that slashing wing? At that point, you're probably getting rid of all the space for Parker Jackson Cartwright to operate. I like the idea of, like a 2-guard who can really stretch it, who can create a little bit. But more importantly, I want this team to be able to run. I think Sam Menenga is a big who can run. There is a mobility there, right? I want a team that can get up and down the floor, because with Parker Jackson Cartwright as the head of the snake and someone like Karim Lopez, the size and athleticism on the wings, if this team can play with pace, I think that's what Petteri Koppinen, a young modern coach, would want to do.
Let's quickly nail this.
You guys are going with that offensive approach, but I just think Parker needs help on the defensive end. I think it gets really tough out there for a small guard. We know he's a brilliant player, but if you're trying to make a run at winning basketball games, man, you're going to need a point of attack defender.
It's a fair point.
It is a great point, and also we know how Twitter likes to be in this time, day in the year, and everything that's going on. If Dyson Daniels is available, you go get him. Okay, we are fully on board with that. Well, I'm just saying, someone will put a connection saying that Pete and Olgun said you don't want Dyson Daniels. That is not true.
I do agree that if Dyson Daniels was available, you should go and sign him for an NBL.
We can move on.
Derek, I've got your back here, all right? I'm not letting these two fool's heads take this thing apart, all right?
LeBron James is trying to get traded, right?
Okay, we're okay.
Get out. Now I need your full attention, because we are going to get to the Perth Wildcats. I think of all of the teams, the Red Army, this is a really unique dynamic, and not one that we've seen for maybe ever with the Perth Wildcats, because they've always had their staples. They don't have a lot of staples right now. I think it's a little unfair that, they've got Christian Doolittle, they brought him back, tick. They've brought back Dylan Windler, tick. They wanted a defensive guard, they went and got a Sunday Detch. They're doing the best they can here in terms of the post-Bryce Cotton era. Why do you think there's the animosity and the angst here from the Red Army?
You can understand where it's all coming from when you lose the five-time MVP in Bryce Cotton and see him on another team.
But he's gone now.
I agree. It's time probably to now move on and move ahead. But the fact they haven't made a move since I think it was David Aquera is what makes everybody a little on edge. But look around the rest of the league. A couple of teams are making little moves here and there. I say little moves, 1 or 2 moves. Sydney and Adelaide are the only teams that are complete. Everyone else still has shopping to do, and a lot of theirs revolves around that marquee centre position, right? They missed out on Yanni Wetzel. There's a couple of marquee centres who haven't signed, and I said this last episode as well. Until those marquee centres sign a deal that's not at the Perth Wildcats, they are technically still available. You technically still call and see what could transpire. They've been waiting for a lot of Europe deals to be finalised, their Asia deals, two-way deals, all of that. That's why they've been patient in that regard, so they can make sure they nail the marquee centre, which they need. And then you're going out there and make a big splash in the point guard market. Now, I believe you have some news on that.
Not necessarily news, but
type of news.
Here's an idea of what the Perth Wildcats are looking for. You know, there are some names that I'm told they reached out to. I'm told that they reached out to Emmanuel Mudiay.
What?
Right? This is a high-level point guard. He was playing in Puerto Rico most recently. Had 6 or 7 seasons in the NBA. Was a high-level rookie, especially in the NBA. But he's someone that they reached out to. Now, the Perth Wildcats will not be getting Emmanuel Mudiay. He generally doesn't play basketball in the time of year that the NBL is on. So that won't be happening, but that's the type of player that they've gone after. Also, Xavier Simpson was also a player that they've gone after. Now, I don't know if that'll happen or not, but it's just an idea. He had a cup of coffee in the NBA, was the Romanian League MVP. He's a high-level point guard outside of the NBL. Now, that's the type of player, Ruck, that this team is going after, and from what I understand, they're willing to spend, as far as the people I've spoken to, up to $1 million on that point guard spot, which outside of Bryce Cotton and Xavier Cooks would be the highest paid player in the league. And so the money that they're putting forward and they're offering to different agents around world basketball for that point guard spot is extremely high. So again, this idea that they're just sitting on their hands is obviously not true. But Derek, what do you think of the type of the player profile of that point guard that you think they need? Because those two names I mentioned are very different, and there are heaps of different types of point guards out there. What do you feel they need at the spot?
Yeah, well, I mean, that number is astounding to me, Olgun, but good on them for going and digging in their wallets and trying to find the resources to sign some type of quality player at the point guard position. But I think you need a very dynamic Kendrick Davis style player for this team. You need someone that's going to take that ball and be able to do a lot with it: score, penetrate, distribute, create assists for his teammates. But Olgun, I think I don't know what the point of it is if you can't get a big. It seems like wasted money, because if you don't get a big, you're probably a play-in team at best. And I'm not downgrading the recruits that they've made. I think they're all good players. But when you start comparing them to the other teams in the league and the way they've built up, man, it looks hard to see them finishing in the top 4. So why spend all that money on the point guard position?
Well, you have to spend the money. Even if you can't find...
You have to spend a certain amount, but you don't have to spend that type of money.
I mean, you've seen the vitriol that's come from the Red Army because this team is taking its time. They have to do it, otherwise there is going to be an avalanche of criticism. Now, another thing that... And look, we speak about that center spot, and you mentioned Joe Lual-Chul last episode. He is technically still available, right? I don't think he's ruled out any of his options. So again, like you said, as long as until he is signed somewhere else, then he's still technically an option. And all of these marquee options, I'll even put Will McDowell-White in that conversation. These guys are still technically open to an NBL return until they sign otherwise. That's the reality.
Am I right in kind of summarising this and saying that they've had 4 key pieces and they're only going to be able to fill 3 of them? Is it a real reality that they'll be able to sign a marquee 5 and a star point guard?
I still think it is, yeah, because you look around, again, there's still some names that are available and could potentially still be available. Now, that dollar figure for the point guard spot is astronomical. You talk about being able to go out there and spend. That means that Danny Mills and John Riley, when they get to Las Vegas, they'll be sitting in a different spot. They'll be looking at a whole different ball game than every other team there.
You wait until everyone hears that. You watch how many meetings those two have.
But that's the kind of...
So just with bags with dollar signs on them.
A lot of teams, when they go over there, you're actually looking for players that aren't even actually probably playing in the first couple of days. Those imports, the ones who are playing in the first couple of days are normally either competing for a two-way spot or have something lined up in Europe at a high level. That's where the rest of the team's ready. Okay, who's that guy who's about the 10th, 11th spot, if he's American, when he starts to play? That's the guy that we want to go after. Kendrick Davis didn't play a whole lot in Summer League last year. So that's where a lot of the other teams will be looking at. Whereas Perth, for Danny Mills and John Riley, if they're throwing that around, they're looking at everybody's on the floor at all times because they have the potential to go out there and make an offer.
Okay, let me ask you this, Old. Would that money be better spent on a big?
They'll spend both.
Well, if one of them is a marquee, then the cap flexibility you get from that is ideal, right? So they will have a good amount of money there. When you look at the
No, but
depth
I mean
chart,
as an import.
well, that would only be if they're able to get McDowell White. If they are strong in those sweepstakes, then you can go and get an import big. When I look at the roster, though, there is a need for dynamic creation. And we've said that with a lot of teams, but that's just what teams need in their point guards. They need someone like that. And the other thing that I'll flag is that, firstly, when you look at the depth chart, that you got this guard spot and this center spot. In effect, they're replacing Keanu Pinder and Bryce Cotton, right? So that's the talent that you have to replace. And when you also think about it, they haven't really replaced Ty Webster and the skill set he brings. And then there's a waiting game with Ben Henschel, which is important to note, because that's a 25 minutes a game guy and someone who can maybe give you 20 points on any given night.
But there's no right situation there, is there, with Ben Henschel?
No. So with Ben Henschel, he's purely a free agent, and he's hoping that he's eligible to go to college. That is his goal, and I think that will end up happening. But I think the Wildcats, I think part of them being patient is waiting to see on the Ben Henschel situation, because if that is the case, then that is a starting guard option for them. Then the question becomes, what type of import guard do you get if you know you have Ben Henschel coming back? That changes the equation for what they're looking for that player profile.
I'll ask the question that I think has possibly come up the most from a Wildcats fan's perspective. Did they go too early with Dylan Windler? Did they wanted Christian Doolittle, and they clearly prioritised Dylan Windler as well, but given all of the moving pieces here, did they put that signature in the drawer too early?
I don't think so as of right now. We'll see what transpires over the next few weeks, but I'm with there's still plenty of paths here that their roster looks very good. They go out there and get the pieces that we're talking about and fill it out the right way, then everything that's happened in the past few months kind of gets forgotten. Besides the Bryce thing, which I'm sure will be held on to for forever. But after that, there's still enough there. And I look at the marquee centre spot as well. A lot of other marquees you see locked in for multiple year deals. If that does happen to be the way they go down with some of these guys who haven't signed yet, it could just be a one-year deal. Say, hey, come on in. If they have to overpay, but we need you to come in here for this year, and then you have a chat as the year goes on. So it's not dire straits just yet. They've got plenty of options to go. The rest of the things are patient. There's still, as we said, plenty of decisions to be made with players out there like Ben Henschel, like other guys, which is not why it's not all panic stations just yet.
And I'll say this, if in a month's time we look at this depth chart and it has an elite point guard at the one spot, it has Ben Henschel at the two, and a marquee center, with the depth they have, there's questions about their big depth. For example, can Latmain and David Aquera play meaningful minutes? All those things. We'll see what Elijah Pepper's leap looks like. Can it translate from the NBL 1 to the NBL? Those are legitimate questions. But when you look at just the five, if they're able to fill those spots with what I think they're hoping for, then the waiting will be worth it. And that's fine. And I think everyone will have sort of been up in arms for no reason. Still a big if, though. Right?
We shall wait and see. We shall wait and see. Let's go to the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix and their shopping list right now. They have signed their starting point guard, and Amari Moore was a major priority for them. They love his size. They love his length. They love the way that he plays. So that's a big tick. They've bolstered the front court, which was something that they wanted to do as well. So it leaves the 3 and the 4. If they get this right, they're going to be a very good team.
Amari Moore's a stud. Don't get me wrong. And if everyone who wasn't aware of him prior to this signing, you've seen all the signings. He's going to play for the Spurs in Summer League, going over there. Josh King will be there. They'll have a heavy influence there. But he is going to be an absolute superstar. We're talking about guys, and you start to put together your early predictions of all NBL first and second teams. Amari Moore's going to be a name that you're going to have to consider for that, because he is just that good. Nathan Sobey, we saw under Josh King what he's capable of. Geordie Hunter, one of the best local big men in the league. Those two spots are crucial. I think Josh King, with his connections, has no problem with filling them with high-level talent, but they'll be in Las Vegas. And I'm not necessarily sure that those last two spots come from guys who are playing Summer League, but the connections or representation will be around, which is why they have a presence there.
Yeah, I'm intrigued at what the Matt Hurt replacement looks like. Will it be someone as high level? Will it be someone who fits the style of play of Josh King a little bit better? But I'm really looking at Malik Lewis here as someone who I think Malik Lewis could start on a bunch of NBL teams. Coming into his second year as an NBL Next Star, I wonder if that's the direction that Josh King goes. You can start Malik Lewis, and then you can be a bit funky with that third import spot. I still think they would go for a wing spot. That still sounds like what they're doing. But the fact that they have Malik Lewis and Angus Glover and Owen Foxwell, these are guys who other teams would love to have come off their bench. When we look at some of the other teams, you look at the Brisbane Bullets, they would love to have that bench. These are really high-level dudes. Foxwell and Glover going to Boomers camp, right, for the FIBA Asia Cup. So these are high-level dudes. If Malik Lewis could start, which I think is a possibility, then there's more flexibility with that other import spot ruck.
Yeah, I love the optionality of the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, and I think you saw them make a huge jump defensively, and I see no reason why they be outside the top 3 in NBL 26 in terms of their defensive rating. And then that's going to drive a lot of their offense. And some of the struggles I felt they had on the offensive end at times last season, in particular, a lot of second halves of games, I think that will be sorted out with the team coming back and the nucleus coming back and understanding what Josh King wants from his offensive philosophies. I think they've been somewhat under the radar this offseason, but I think it's a very dangerous team and a team that is probably going to challenge for a top 4 spot. And I'm saying that pre-finalization of the roster. I just have a lot of confidence in what they're building there.
The more we start to talk about how high we are in teams, I'm trying to fit 8 teams into 4 spots.
Right.
It's really hard, but
right.
I'm with you on that too, Ruck, where I think there's different. Obviously, we talk about shopping lists going to Vegas. There's different mindsets, whereas Melbourne United are saying, hey, we need a centre, right? So they're just looking in the centre market. Whereas Josh King and Olgun makes a great point where, okay, we can start Malik Lewis, and his backup could also actually be Angus Glover. So we are open to a bunch of different options. Obviously, they need a power forward import. We know that. That's one. But then that other import is like, okay, if we get that 3 spot, yep, we'll go down that path. But we can also get someone who can maybe play the 2 and the 3 and slide other magnets around. So they are in a very good spot in that where they can just have a look at different pieces as well.
Or they can go and get someone.
I'm also loving the way they look physically. They've got good athleticism. It looks like they're building a strong team that's going to have length. And if they add similar types of players to that lineup, they're going to be terrorizing on the defensive end. Trust me.
And I think of, you say that they can go get like a 2 or a 3 import. I'm looking the other direction. A big question coming into the season will be, how much do you trust DJ Mitchell? How much do you trust Akech Alir or Gorjok Gak? If you're able to start Malik Lewis, for example, you look at Amari Moore. He's someone who can play the 1, 2, 3. In the NBL, he can maybe slide up to the 4 as well. Angus Glover could probably play the 1, 2, 3. In the NBL, can he slide up to the 4? It's maybe debatable, but he probably thinks so. Owen Foxwell is someone who can play on or off the ball. Sobey is someone who can play on or off the ball. So the positional versatility is awesome in those guard spots on the perimeter. So do you maybe get someone to shore up your front court? Do you go get a 4-5 or a 4-3 type as your import? The fact that they don't have to be boxed into, all right, we need to get a 4 and then a wing, is really good going into Summer League, where they should have sort of their pick of third imports.
Olgun, it's interesting that you mentioned that. Do they wait and see? Do you guys do you place any value in waiting to see how other teams finalize their rosters, given that Southeast Melbourne have this kind of time up their sleeves where they can sit back a little bit? Now, we know the market dictates that you must act at times also. Would you be willing to wait to actually see the final rosters and then try and fill out to see what you're dealing with?
I don't think they have to compare themselves against other teams in that regard, but I think they can say, hey, we're going into Las Vegas right now. We're circling the power forward spot. Let's just put all our focus on that right now, and then we'll shift our attention to everything else. But if, as you're doing that, someone knocks down the door of a starting 3, you're like, hey, this guy's someone we can actually look at. Absolutely, you start that conversation now. But the power forward's the key, and then you figure out the rest. And I think Josh King will be right around the mark.
You can almost get, once you get the 4 spot, you can almost get the best available at that point and figure it out after the fact. The way Josh King plays, up and down, it's not traditional in the way guys line up. Man, you can get anyone.
I think you've gathered from this panel that we're all feeling pretty confident about the direction that the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix are taking. To the Sydney Kings, if they're at Summer League, it's basically just to shake hands and have a few beers, isn't it?
The same as Adelaide. They'll be there. Brian Gorge obviously coaching with the Knicks. Chris Pongrass will be there from what I understand. So, yeah, I think what they've built, when we talk about winning the off-season, they did it early. They really went early on it. Delhi was their key focus. They got Matthew Dellavedova, Kendrick Davis alongside. And, again, pre-season's crucial for them as much as it is for the Adelaide 36ers as well. So having Delhi, KD and Xavier Cooks in California working out together just a little bit, they're already starting to discuss playing styles, all of that. I think we'll see a different play style with Andrew Bogut now as part of the coaching staff, putting his little mix on it. Xavier Cooks, Tim Suarez is a really, really key piece. We spoke about it last Marketplace. Spacing the floor for KD and Delhi to be able to operate. And I really think one you mentioned very briefly last episode, we should talk more about at some point. Jalen Galloway, we are due to see explode in the NBL. He started that one game last year when Sydney looked like they were about to turn things around and did his shoulder and was ruled out. I think Jalen Galloway is going to push for a lot more consistent minutes, and all these other pieces will just fit in.
And something we don't talk about enough in the NBL, and it's because of the way rosters are built, is continuity. We look at the Illawarra Hawks and Melbourne United. These are two teams that had continuity with their roster. You look at this team. This is the second year of Brian Goorjian at the helm of this team that has Xavier Cooks, Bull Kuol, a lot of these bench guys, Tyler Robertson, Kelly Pepe, Quat Noy in this group, Jalen Galloway, Sean Bruce, with this new iteration of the Sydney Kings. The continuity is important. And again, the fact that Delhi, Kendrick, Xavier are all working out in LA, the fact that this team has been doing weekly runs and they've been doing, twice a week trainings that has Brian Goorjian there, has Billy Tomlinson, has Sean Roger, Andrew Bogut is now in Sydney as part of these runs. I don't know any team outside of Sydney and Melbourne that has their entire coaching staff from their head coach down as part of these runs and incorporating their guys so early in the piece. The fact that everyone is still in Sydney, and a lot of these guys stayed in Sydney, from Quat Noy to Jalen Galloway, Sean Bruce, Quat, all these guys are in Sydney. So the continuity is a really important piece. And Tim Suarez, there's some continuity there with Xavier Cooks and Sean Bruce and these guys. So that's, Ruck, I think, a really underrated piece of this roster build.
Well, obviously, a lot of the highlight has gone to Davis and Dellavedova, but what I really like now with the signing of Tim Suarez is the defensive versatility up front. Now you can play Noy with Cooks. You can even play Galloway with Suarez. You can play LePepe with Cooks. There are so many different looks Brian Goorjian can give to the other team from a defensive point of view, and then that helps the guards. Everyone's talking about the size of Dellavedova and Davis, but now with that defensive versatility, with those bigs, how you cover on balls changes. You have so many different options now on how you can play, disrupt, and confuse offensive attackers. So I think the Suarez signing is probably one of the more underrated ones of this offseason, and something that probably should have happened last season for them to help them get over a lot of the troubles they had rebounding the basketball.
And look, that's all to say the Sydney Kings are done. So Chris Pongrass, Brian Goorjian will be part of that Knicks coaching staff. I'm told he'll have a higher spot on that coaching staff than previously thought, because I think they're bringing a young head coach that they want that coach to learn from. So they want Gorge to play a teaching role. Outside of that, it's blackjack, baccarat. We'll jump on the 2-5 in the poker tables. We'll have fun in Vegas.
Which is also just a little snapshot to what I'm going to be doing at Summer League when it rolls around next week as well. Let's finish with the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. Now, there'll be JJ's fans who will be watching this thinking, why are you talking about us? Why have we got a shopping list? We're pretty much sorted. Well, as you can see from the shopping list, we've added Sign a Centre in here, Pete. It's worth just exploring why we're talking about this.
Well, it says Sign a Centre on the shopping list should be in pencil, right? Because it can be erased. And this is what we spoke about last week with Will Magnay being in the US right now with an NBA team, that there is a chance that if he continues to stay there for longer than just the Summer League period and soon after with minicamp, that they have to go out there and use the import spot that they haven't wasted away already. They didn't go out there and say, hey, let's go and get 3 imports. They kept it more for an insurance of injury at first. But now to be able to bring someone in, if Magnay goes, a high-level centre and not lose a heap is really important.
So here's the situation. Will Magnay is currently in the US with the Memphis Grizzlies. That is the team he's with. Now, he's also dealing with a wrist injury. So I don't think it's entirely certain that he's even going to play basketball. But that tells me that the fact that they've even brought him over when they're not entirely sure he's even going to play Summer League, that's telling. And so the word that's getting around is that they're putting legitimate consideration into finding a spot for him over at the Grizzlies. And this isn't from Magnay's camp. This isn't Magnay's camp projecting like, yeah, they really like him. No, this is from other people who I'm hearing there's a spot there and we might use it on Magnay. And so I think the Jack Jumpers are hearing this and thinking, okay, we need to prepare for the worst, and the worst would be to lose Magnay. And so they are actively preparing as though Magnay might not be there, so they are looking at their centre options in the import market.
Which becomes important, Derek, because beyond that, if they do lose Will Magnay, they've really only got Kobe Williamson as backup at the 5. So if they lose Magnay, they're going to have to get a good person in that position.
Yeah, and it puts a lot of pressure on Scott Roth to grab someone who is, very, very well-rounded. He's got to be able to block shots like Will Magnay did. He's got to be able to score the basketball, because I thought last season was Magnay's best offensive season as a pro. His true shooting percentage was something crazy. And just his ability to finish around the bucket was outstanding. But look, I believe that Magnay should have been in the NBA last season. It didn't work out. Came back to the NBL, was hurt. and now he's probably going to get a chance. And I think, it's a place where he deserves to be. Now, with respect to Tasmania, I like what they've done, full stop. And if Magnay does come back to that lineup, I think this is a team that goes deep into the playoffs. And you're starting to get that feel about Scott Roth and the Jack Jumpers culture. We're not having 2 bad seasons in a row. In fact, they've had 3 good seasons out of their 4, including the championship season. So I think Scott Roth knows what he's doing. I think the front office is really good. We know it's a very difficult place to win basketball games at My State Bank Arena. And I think the recruiting of the imports this season, these might be potentially 2 imports that are better than Crawford and Doyle, who are patchy at times, but guys that have been very effective there.
So 2 things. Derek, it's only 4 teams in the playoffs. Yeah, it's not like a 10-team
I know,
playoff bracket.
I know.
It's
but
tough.
this,
It's tough.
At that point, we're doing like an NCAA tournament type thing. That's the first thing. The second thing is this is where the Magnay situation and the questions around him makes the Bannon signing way more significant. Because while you look at Jack McVeigh, for example, he was like a 4-3. Bannon's like a 4-5.
Yeah.
And we saw in those NBL at the NBL Selects games in Japan, he played a lot of the 5. That might be his best position. We saw him play some 5 with the Brisbane Bullets toward the end of the season, where all of their centers got injured. So the fact that Bannon can slide up, that takes some pressure off this team needing a ton of production from Kobe Williamson, and it would make the potential loss of Magnay, make that fall a little bit softer. Now, it would be a significant loss because of what Magnay is on the defensive end, the fact that he carries that team defensively. But it still softens the blow a little bit because I think Bannon's best position is probably at the 5.
When he's healthy, he's the best big man in the league. Will Magnay. We've seen it, right? The defensive side is one thing, but what he can start to do on the offensive end, we haven't seen the Will Magnay in Brisbane when he was knocking down the threes in front of Andrew Bogut when he was playing for the Kings, but everything else he continues to work on. He is the best big man in the league, so it would be a massive gap to fill, but I'm with Olgun. I've spoke about how high I am on the Josh Bannon signing. He just fits everything. It's a match made in heaven there. Hamilton, Johnson, whilst we haven't seen them, just the types of players they are, I think they're going to complement the Scott Roth style. And I think based on pace of play, we'll fast forward to 8 months' time and have to check it all. But I think they're going to play a lot faster than they have in years gone by. I think they're going to get up and down the floor. Sean McDonald's going to push the pace. Even though they've got Josh Bannon, if they lose Magnay to bring in some sort of import centre, I think we're going to see a team that speeds up a little bit more, ISO shot making, creation, able to do that with Hamilton and Johnson, while still having the team that, okay, we're executing. We're executing here. If we know another team likes to run like the Kings, whoever it is, the New Zealand Breakers, when they come to Tassie, we're going to slow them right down and we're happy to grind it out. But I think we're going to see a more sped up style, which should be fun for the Jack Jumpers fans.
So that is every team from top to bottom, the things that they need at Summer League. Don't forget, of course, if you missed our previous episode, jump online, check that one out. This is your primer for Summer League, and it's going to tell you what we are looking for. And the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, they might be a bit of a wait and see with Will Magnay as well. Great work by the two of you. Travel safe. The next time that we will see you after our Summer League preview will be in the States. So good luck and behave yourselves.
Thank you.
Can't promise anything, but thank you. Thank you so much.
And Derek, you're already there. So we'll just see you when we see you, I suppose.
All right, guys. Great. Olgun, Pete, hook me up. Come see me when you get to Vegas, please.
Yeah,
It's on the record. It's public. You can't back out of it now.
Save that for the WhatsApp group, you three. Thanks for joining us here on The Marketplace. Don't forget nbl.com.au for all the latest news and information. And download the NBL app as well. It is absolutely superb. We'll catch you next time.